about time. It's about time you got here. I've been waiting. Where the have you been? Just been waiting for you. That's right. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to the show. Welcome to spending some time with me, the most hated person in women's photography. Attacked by boudoir photographers because I have the audacity to come out and say that you as a woman are not damaged. As ridiculous as that sounds, in boudoir photography, that is heresy. It's heresy. What I should be playing in the background when I come on is like the Darth Vader theme. I don't think I could play that. I chose not to drink the Kool-Aid back when I started my career a zillion years ago. See, and at that point, boudoir isn't like it is now or was. You know, it was just photography. You grabbed a camera, you wanted to make beautiful pictures, and you just did that. And then it became this whole narrative that women are broken. And I never bought into that. I never concerned myself with that. Meanwhile, everybody else was all tied up. Women are damaged, and we must fix you all. Came into existence. Never ran my business that way. Never will. They hate me. They hate me. How can I say you are not damaged? It's very bizarre. They hate me. So, maybe you stumbled into the wrong place. Maybe you're here. But got news for you. Those days are over. They hate me because I've succeeded. They hate me because I've been more successful than probably 99% of the women's photographers out there. They hate me because I believe you are a strong, independent person and that you are not broken. I believe you get up in the morning, put both feet on the ground, and say, this is going to be a great day. You go and do your stuff. You come home. You are able. You are confident. You are strong. And for believing that the women of America are well, they hate me. Can you believe that? And that's why we do this show. Because people don't know of the whole weird universe that goes on in boudoir photography. And like I said, this is something I was very aware of like a long time ago. And you know, you're working just with the people who come to see you. Your audience is rather small, you know, and once I really saw what was going on outside of my bubble, because I never really paid attention to it, nor did I care what anybody else was doing, but just the bizarre behavior by photographers and what they were doing to their clients, you know, I could not just let that happen because it's ridiculous. So that's where, like, years ago, I started going on podcasts or educating people in my blog and putting blog posts up about these crazy photographers, because I didn't want women to walk into that, because I've heard the horror stories. I know how crazy they can be. Now, again, not everybody, and I always talk about that. It is certainly not everybody, but most. So welcome to the show. I am your host, Darth Vader. I have photographed hundreds of women through my career, and we put on this little show every week answering a question that people have about women's photography, because you're just going to get the straight information from me. You know, I know you are smart. I know when you want a women's photography session, you want a cute gift for your wedding, for your husband, Christmas. I know you want to come in and have a good time, and that's really the level of it. And you would say, gee, Mike, isn't that what boudoir is about? No. If you've listened to the show for any period of time, you would see that's exactly not what boudoir has turned into. And lucky for us, those wacky days are pretty much over. That whole crazy boudoir photography thing is kind of exposed now, thanks to the help of us and some other people. And hopefully what we want is boudoir to continue to be what it should be, really great photographers, technical excellence, women coming in like you, having a great experience and walking away with a smile on your face. So that's what we do. And they cannot stop me. I don't care. I don't care. Come on and keep talking about it. And it's very interesting, the feedback that the show has received from people. And oh my God, you were right. Oh my God, this happened to me. And oh my God, that was my experience. And I think what I may possibly be doing is over the summertime, we may be possibly getting some boudoir clients on the show to talk about their experience and kind of what they went through, or maybe some local photographers to talk about how they deal with their clients, just to get it out there. And so you can hear firsthand about some people's experience. But, we're thinking about that, working on that over the summer. And if you haven't, when you're done listening to this episode, you can go back and listen to last week's episode about, can I bring a friend along to film some behind the scenes content at my boudoir shoot? So that was interesting in this day of social media, talking about something that not too common, but once in a while you'll hear of someone who wants to bring in a friend to film because they're like a social media type person and they want to document their boudoir shoot. And so when you get a chance, you can listen to that episode. And just as a reminder, we're going to pause here for a moment. This podcast is not for photographers, so we're just going to leave a moment for them to get all out of here and go find their Get Rich Quick podcast. And before we really get into anything, so we'll just give them a moment as I sip my beverage so they can hit the back button and get out. Okay, so what we're going to be chatting about this week is kind of interesting. And again, it's something that you may not think about, but it's important when it comes to finding your photographer. And this week, we're going to be chatting a little bit about, does your boudoir photographer need a personality? Do they need a personality? And the spoiler answer here is yes. And it's something, again, that you would think would be kind of part of the job, but it isn't. So once again, we're going to be talking about some things you really need to investigate when you go ahead and book your photographer to make sure that you feel comfortable during your shoot and you're getting the best out of your session. So what I mean by this is, do they have a personality? Is that when you go in for your session, it's essentially you in a room with somebody you really don't know and you ain't got much clothes on. Not something or a situation you may find yourself in every day. So it's really up to the photographer to make sure that whole thing gets steered in the right direction and you're going to kind of get the results that you want. Because you go in, women are very vulnerable, especially if it's like your first time. Most women coming in are nervous, they're unsure, they're walking into a situation like, all right, I found this person. I hope they know what they're doing and they're a little bit at ease at first, And so this is why not only is the photographer's technical ability like super, super important, which is very lacking in a lot of women's photographers over the past 10 years, but they also need to really be a people person, and that is key. And when it comes to working with the photographer, these things are all of equal importance. One really doesn't necessarily become more important than the other, because it's, when I've always been speaking to my people, like I'm jumping way ahead here just because this is how my brain works, but the photographer is actually doing a lot of technical stuff, but the way I always thought of it is they don't want to make that seem like work for the person coming in. They don't want what they're doing to interfere with the person's experience, because it's all about having a great experience, and you need a real good people person. You need to be a real good people person as a photographer to keep things from feeling cringy, awkward silences, fumbling through. I don't know what's going to come next, because that session can start to really go off the comfort rails very, very easily. And what we found, or what I found, is that great photography starts with great vibes. You know, your comfort level as a client in a woman's photo session really shows in your photos. You know, stiff, awkward energy, nervousness in the face is something that you can't take away with Photoshop. Just like people who stay up all night long and they come in really, really tired. You can't Photoshop like tiredness off somebody's face, but that kind of like, am I okay? You know, that's something that a photographer can't get rid of. And to me, it's always been really evident in a photo when someone was feeling a little awkward or they were pushed to do something really they weren't really comfortable doing. And so at the end of the day, you know, you as a client aren't looking for a whole bunch of photos where you are kind of not looking great and looking back on that situation saying, yeah, that wasn't the most fun or the most comfortable thing that I've ever done. So how are you going to know? How are you going to know? Well, as I noted, the photographer's job, aside from all of the technical stuff that is going on, today we're focusing more on that sort of interactive part of this. It's really to create this like relaxed atmosphere, kind of an easygoing vibe. And so you are like, you know what? This is kind of fun. I'm having a good time. And that those nerves sort of go away and the smiles come on your face. And that's where really, you know, as a photographer, you're going to get the results that you want. As a client, you're going to get the results that you want. Everybody starts having fun, and then the session kind of goes in a positive direction. If you get in that situation where things start off awkward and the photographer's fumbling and there's just like dead silence, you know, like, because when the woman is waiting for the next photo and there's just silence and the photographer is fumbling and the woman's like, what am I doing here? Is this how this is supposed to go? I'm just like sitting here with no clothes on and this person is like not making this easy. But, you know, you have to, I always thought of it as kind of you're like a game show host. You know, you were just like guiding the person through the whole session. You have to be the entertainment as well as the technical person directing everything. And so you need to be doing two jobs like at one time, talking to the person. I hate to say like making jokes because you don't want to turn it into like sort of a comedy routine in there, but just helping that person feel at ease. And I have found not everybody is so good at that. You may have people that are really, really good photographers, but don't have the best personality in the world. You may have someone who's like a total, like, you know, going on and nonstop with the talking, but then their photography skills are not the best, you know? So again, how do you know? Are you laughing? Are you having fun during your session? Well, that I think is what you want to do. And that's kind of the game changer for those natural glowing photos, those cute smiles. And it doesn't happen by accident. That really is part of the plan and what your photographer needs to do. They just need to sort of be a natural people person to coax. It's like they're a coach. You need a good coach. They got to coax that out of you. They got to push you and get that out of you for the good photos that you want. And like I said, it's like being a host. It's like being a host of a party. You know, you would not invite like someone over to your house and like ignore them the whole time, right? Someone you just met, have them come in and you're just sitting on the other side of the room in silence and not saying anything, and they're sitting on the couch going, what am I doing here? This is a little strange. And that can happen, like sort of in a manner of speaking, in a session. And the photographer really needs, as I noted earlier, just a guide. They have to greet the person, make sure they're feeling okay, have that good sort of conversation with them. So they're like, all right, going into this, ease them into the session. You, as a photographer, are there as a guide. You keep things flowing. You know when to chat, you know when not to chat, you know when to take the picture, you know when to entertain the person in front of you, you know when it may be time to take a little bit of a break, you got to know when it may be time to speed things up, you got to know when it may be time to read between the lines when your client wants to do something, but they may not be confident enough to bring it up to say, can we do this type of photo? So it takes experience and it takes the right type of person to go in and guide that session in that manner. And, in a weird way, and I hate using that kind of a term, but you're like the hype squad in a certain way. You're boosting things sort of along in between the posing and everything else. And it takes practice and it takes skill and it takes the right type of a personality. And as I noted, both things matter. Technical ability, personality, very important. When you can find someone who has both of those things, that's kind of the home run situation as a client, and that is what you are looking for. And even experienced photographers, as I noted, can really fall short in this personality, sort of character. They're cold or disconnected, and some people just that's how they are. And also too, you want the person to be genuine. You want them to be who they are, not just like some zany kind of a person, because that's just as annoying and awkward for a client too. So you don't want this like super high strung person. You just need a good people person. You're looking for the whole ball of wax. They got to know their lighting. They got to know their posing, and they need to know how to make you feel like you're just hanging out. Like you're just hanging out with a friend, and that's when your session will be a success. And all right, Mike, so maybe something I didn't really think about till you just brought it up, but it's interesting. And what are some red flags to look out for here? Well, they're a little less obvious like up front, because you're mostly going to be reading somebody's website or looking at their pictures, and just by reading that, you may or may not be able to really tell a lot about the photographer. So this really comes in the interactive stage, and this is why I say it's always important to call and talk to the person to make sure you feel okay with them and you feel a good vibe with them. And if you are reaching out to somebody and they're really not putting that effort into building a rapport before that session or during that session, that's a red flag. Because as a photographer, you're very aware that from that very start, you're trying to build that relationship with that person, so they are keen to do that. If there's not a lot of effort there, a little bit of red flag. If the people are vague, or sort of unhelpful when you're in that beginning stages with them, that could be kind of a red flag. If they seem bored or distracted, not getting back to you, that could probably be a red flag. If there's zero follow-up, and check in on how you're feeling these are even during the session, if they're not checking in on with you or before, that can be a red flag. So you have to be sort of aware of these things, because you really don't want to get into an hour and a half, 2 hours of discomfort being with somebody like that, because trust me, the photos are going to show that. So how do you know? How do you know if you got like a personality plus photographer? Well, they will take time to do like a real consultation with you. They'll be eager to do that, not just emails or not just a couple of text messages, because they themselves want to start building that relationship with you. They will explain the whole process to you, ask any questions that you may have, make sure you're comfortable, keep you engaged and part of the whole process. That's what you want to look out for. They're going to be upbeat, positive, even before your shoot starts. Remember, and despite what anybody tells you, these sessions are about having fun. The whole point of coming into a boudoir shoot, kind of like going to Disney World, it's about having a little bit of fun. So if that person is not really about creating that fun environment, that may be a little bit of a red flag there. So you want to make sure your photographer isn't keeping you engaged. even before that shoot ever starts. And then, as always, you can always check their reviews and stuff online. Look for people mentioning fun, comfort. They made me feel at ease, words along those lines. That's good if prior clients are speaking out about their experience with the photographer. So you got to do a little work. And as we always talk about, if you're not doing these things, you're just kind of rolling the dice. And women's photography is expensive. You just don't want to sort of get yourself in a situation and not knowing what you're getting into. So you really have to get in and do this little bit of work up front as a client. You just have to. And this is something we talk about episode in and episode back. I don't even know what I'm saying, forward and backward and up and down. There's a bit more work for you as someone coming in to do a boudoir session than you may initially think. It is not point and click and book just because Google puts somebody in front of your face. Like I always say, Google doesn't know anything about that photographer other than they may be in Lawrence, Kansas. Other than that, they don't know about their experience. They don't know about their personality. They don't know if they're outsourcing your personal photos to China. They don't know if they're crazy. They don't know if as soon as you walk in that door, they're going to tell you they need to fix you, and the list goes sort of on and on and on. There's a lot of things that Google does not know about boudoir photographers. So you, as the client, need to sort of do a little bit of investigative work yourself and make sure that this person you're thinking of working with is someone that you're sitting back going, yeah, that was a good talk. Looking forward to going into this session. And then you have a lot better chance of that turning out to be the kind of session that you want it to be. And if there's one takeaway from this and the wrap up, it's that everyone wants amazing photos when they go into their boudoir shoot. And amazing photos come from feeling good during your session. They come from the smiles, they come from the comfort, they come from you having a good time. Don't settle for someone who may just be technically good. Look for the full package. Look for everything. You want them to have everything because that's super, super important in getting the results that you want. And it's often something that people may not think about, may not know. So there you go. That's our little show for this week. Personality is important in the photographer. So just please take a little bit of time to go in and do your research and you will be rewarded. So that's all I got for you this week. I want to thank everybody for stopping in. Enjoy the rest of your week and I will see you next time. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.